Gentlemen, welcome back to another video. Yes, this video is about the age gap, but I will not make another video telling you guys what is acceptable. There are so many videos out there online at the moment that tell you that like a 10 to 15 year age gap is acceptable in the Ukrainian culture. You don't need me to make another video to tell you this. So in this video today, I'm going to be talking about really large age gaps. And when I say really large, I mean 25 to 35 years. So as a lot of you guys probably know, I have been on a few of these tours. I have met a bunch of guys from their 20s all the way up to, I think the oldest that I've met is 74. I know guys that are realistic and I know guys that are very unrealistic. I even know guys that have been in and that are currently in relationships that most people would consider to be unrealistic when it comes to the age gap. But before I get into some of the problems that I see them encounter and that they've told me that they encounter, I want to first define what love is. I know, it's going to sound a little bit boring, but just bear with me just for 1 second and hopefully this makes a little bit of sense. If you're like me, and most of the guys out there, and I know most of the guys that follow my channel are realistic, and so what they think a proper relationship is a romantic, intimate, sexual relationship. That's what we define as a proper relationship. But let's just think about this just for a second, okay? Just bear with me here. And let's think about something else. Let's think about more of an agreement. Let's just say that there is a guy out there and he is 65 years old and he is pursuing, he wants to have a 30-year-old girlfriend or wife, whatever you want to call it. And let's just say that somewhere out there is a 35-year-old woman. Let's say that she is looking for something. She's looking for some guy or for someone or some man to take care of her. To take care of her, to take care of her children. Make sure that she is in a happy, healthy relationship. And for her, that is the definition of love. Age doesn't come into it. Then let's look at him. If he wants to have a 35-year-old woman to cook, to clean, to look good in front of his friends or his ex-wife, and these two people find each other, and they are happy with this arrangement, who is anyone else to say that that isn't love? It's not our definition, well, it's not my definition of love, but who is that to say that that is not love in some sense? Sure, it may not be an intimate, sexual, romantic relationship, but it could be love, right? So who are we to say what love is? If it's an agreement that they have between each other, then that's fine. But it's only when one of them is taking advantage of the other person. That's when it gets a little bit sort of dodgy. I just wanted to put that there just at the start of this video, just because the definition of love can be all kinds of different things. It can just be an agreement. But let's just put that aside just for the moment. Let's just think about a few things. Let's just assume that it is a romantic, intimate, sexual relationship coming from the point of view of the man. On my journey, I have met 3 guys that have been in big relationships. And I know these guys relatively well. And I have been able to speak to them on a level where I can sort of learn a little bit about their relationship and the dynamics of that relationship to try and understand what the problems are that they are actually facing. And if you are pursuing a relationship with these big age gaps, these points here that I'm going to say, and there are 6 of them, these are some things that you probably need to think about, because if you don't think about them now, you most certainly will be thinking about them at some time in the future. Okay, so the first point is, and I'm not making this up, this is just the way that we age, it's just the biology of life. Aging is exponential. So let's just take, for example, and throughout this video, let's just use this example of a woman that is 30 and a man that is 60. That's a 30-year age gap. So when we age, like I like to think that when I was 25, I kind of look the same as what I do now. I probably don't. But when you're 25 to 35, not that much changes, right? Whether you're a man or a woman, not that much changes. When you get to 35 to 45, you still kind of look the same, right? But when you get to 45 to 55, things start to go downhill. When you get to 60 or 65, things really change. It's just the way that it is. It sucks. I'm not looking forward to it, but it's just the way that it is. If you think about it, if you're 60 years old, your girlfriend is 30. There is a big difference in your actual physical appearance. Just think about it for a second. When you get to 60, 65 years old, you are going to start looking like an old man. Now, before we go crazy on it, I do understand that if you're fit, if you're healthy, In fact, one of my good friends, his father is probably 65 years old. You wouldn't guess it because he's active, he plays sport. But there are a lot of guys that aren't like this. When they get to 60 years old, it's a fucking downhill slide to getting old. So when you start to look old, to really show your age, she's still going to be looking quite young. Now that may not be a problem for you. And in many cases, if you were actively searching for this big age gap, it's probably quite good. You're 65 years old and your wife is like, in her 40s perhaps, or late 30s, early 40s. You're going to look pretty good, right? You are going to look good and you are going to feel good about what you've actually achieved. But let's think about it a little bit deeper. And when I say a little bit deeper, I'm talking about number 2 on my list, which is sex. People sort of sidestep around this. They sidestep. It's like, don't talk about sex. It makes things bad. But come on, it's like sex is a normal part of a relationship. Sex is the definition between you and her just being a friend. It's sex. That's my definition of a relationship. I know I threw that thing out at the start that says that there are different definitions of what a relationship, what love can be, but sex surely has to be important. Now, when you think about it, just for a second here, just humor me for a moment. If you're 65 years old and your wife is 35, I'm guessing, I'm not 65, but I can only guess that when you're 65, your libido has gone down. She's 35. She's going to be, I'm going to say it, horny as fuck. Without that sexual intimacy, how are you ever going to have a relationship that you would feel is close? What are you going to do on a Saturday night? Are you going to sit there and watch TV while what is she going to be doing? Making you supper? And I'm not just speaking from the guy's point of view here. I'm speaking from the woman's point of view. If she is in her sexual prime, what is she going to be doing? How is she going to be feeling? Yes, I understand that in Ukraine and certain other cultures, there is a little bit more to a relationship than just looks. I understand this. And I'm not saying that looks is everything. And in the West, maybe it counts for more. But in certain other cultures, such as Ukraine, they are looking for something a little bit more. But still, sex is still going to be important to her. Anybody that tells you, that sex is not important to her, she just wants a man that wants to look after her. Come on, she's a woman. It's just the way that it is. It's just the way that it is. She is going to want to have sex. Which leads me to number 3. And this is very important. Which is her sexual marketplace value. So what I mean by this is that in her own country, she may have had a sexual marketplace value that was kind of low. And that might be because she already has a child. Or it might be because she is over the age of 30. So her sexual marketplace value is low. Now don't forget, you've gone over there. Your sexual marketplace value has gone up by 2 points. But now you've come back to your own country and your own sexual marketplace value has just dropped down to what it is normally before you even went over there. Her sexual marketplace value, which was kind of like here, it wasn't anything great. It wasn't really bad. It wasn't anything, that you would sing home about. But she's come to your country now. Think about this for a second. A 35-year-old Slavic woman who probably has a beautiful body, looks absolutely stunning, takes care of herself. She's going to come to your country. All of a sudden, her sexual marketplace value has gone up. Who is she? She's a girl from Ukraine. She's Slavic. She's Russian. She's beautiful. This is something that you're going to have to deal with. That this woman who absolutely adored you and thought that you were the greatest thing ever has now been injected into a new culture, a new lifestyle where she is the special one, where her value is higher, where guys are going to be wanting to ask her out. Guys are going to be wanting to try and tap that. There's going to be the stigma of she's just here. She's a mail order bride. She's just with this old guy for money. These are things, I'm not saying this to be an asshole or to be a dick or anything. I've seen guys go through this. So this is why I can say it, because I don't think anybody else is going to say it. This is something that you have to think about. And what I believe is that most guys that are actually thinking about doing this, they're not going to listen to what I say anyway. But maybe there is some guys out there that are going to think about this and maybe think about something that is maybe a little bit less of a headache. So that's the sexual marketplace value problem that you're going to have to deal with. Which leads me to the next problem, which is jealousy. Now, I've seen this firsthand with a guy that I met, and we spent quite a bit of time like hanging out, and he had a difference of around about 25 years, I think it was. He was in his 50s, she was like in her 20s, and this drove him absolutely nuts. She would go out on a Friday, Saturday night with her friends, as she should. She would go out with her friends, she would have a good time, he would see her on social media. It would drive him nuts. He would show me the photos. What do you think about this? What do you think? Have a look. Is the way that he has an arm around her, is that like something sexual? What about this guy here? And it would drive him absolutely nuts to the point where he was talking about getting private investigators to follow her or to tail her, or to like hack her Facebook account. He loved her, and I know that she loved him, and I know that they had a sexual, intimate, romantic relationship. She wasn't a scammer, but the fact that she was in her 20s and she was living a 20-year-old lifestyle, and that he was a little bit of an older gentleman in his 50s, he was wanting to settle down, and he didn't have any children, but he wanted to have children. So he wanted that from her. She didn't want to do that right now. She just wanted to have fun with her friends and go overseas and go to these other countries in Europe and have a good time. But this chewed him up. This just it did his head in. And he ended up, I think she actually broke up with him because she couldn't take it anymore. She just couldn't take the jealousy, and he wanted to go through her phone, and it got so messy. And all it was that she was just living her life as a normal 20-something-year-old. She was in a completely different place from where he was in. But the thing you got to remember is, like, how are you going to deal with it? She's going to be at the club. There's going to be guys trying to hook up with her and grind up against her. Maybe ask for her phone number. Guys her age, not guys 30 years older, guys her age. And that could happen while she's over in Ukraine and you're back in the United States. But it could also happen when she comes to your country as well. She's going to want to go out and hang out with her new friends. Just something to think about. How would you deal with it? Even like if it's a realistic relationship, I think it would be quite hard to deal with. But anyway, before you even get to that stage, you need to talk about number 5. Number 5 is her family. For some reason, people seem to think that her family is just like waiting for some guy to come along and rescue their daughter and take her away to a better place. The land of the free. But that's not true either. When it comes to a larger age gap, you're going to have to get past her mother, her father, her grandmother, regardless of whether it's a realistic relationship or whether it's a large age gap relationship. You're still going to have to get past the family. When it comes to foreigners and the daughter, it can be a real struggle. Trust me, I know. I had to battle through this somewhat with one of my girlfriends, where they were like, oh, who the hell is this guy? And I was a realistic age gap. I couldn't imagine how hard it would be if you're 30 years older than her. The parents can be very protective, especially if they're from the small towns or the villages, because think about it. Only like 1990, 1989 was the fall of the Soviet Union. There was no tourists. There was no Westerners. So for some of these old school parents to try and accept the fact that a Westerner is going to like marry their daughter, it's hard for them to accept, let alone one with a 30-year age gap. So you have to try and get through that. So it leads me to number 6. Once she's in your country, there is one thing that she's going to deal with. And it's 100% that this is going to happen if there is a 30-year age gap. If you are 60 years old and she is 30, or you're 65 and she is 35, there is something that she may not care about at the start and you may not care about at all. And that is the social stigma of a woman coming from Ukraine or any sort of Slavic country coming to the United States to be with a man that is 30 years older. Straight away, she is a mail order bride. And she may not care about that in her country. She may not give a shit about that because maybe it's more acceptable amongst her peers, her family, her friends, her social circle. Maybe she even is seen as being a winner, that she's managed to achieve this. But when she comes to United States or to United Kingdom or wherever you live, she is going to be straight away labelled as a mail order bride. If it was a realistic relationship, it's less likely to happen because it's like you met someone, you get on well, it's realistic. Like, why wouldn't she fall in love with this guy? There's only a 5-year age difference. If there's a 30-year age gap, people are going to talk. No two ways about it. And you can say to yourself, and you can say, I don't care. I know our love is strong. I'm happy with our relationship and I don't care what anybody else thinks. And in some cases, you might be kind of happy. I mean, I'm just trying to picture myself as 65 years old with a 35-year-old beautiful woman. Maybe I feel good. Maybe people are jealous of me and I don't really know how I actually don't know how I would feel about it. But she has to deal with that. Now let's think for a second. She's, unless you want her to just sit at home all day and make bosh for you, she might want to go out and work. Let's just say she's a hairdresser. She's going to go out and work. They're going to talk about it. They're going to talk about her as the girl that is a mail order bride. You have got so much work ahead of you to try and make her feel comfortable in a relationship in the United States with a guy that's 30 years older than her. She has to be not just, satisfied, she has to be incredibly happy. And that may come from the fact that you're taking care of her children, but it's going to be a huge hurdle to overcome. I'm not saying that you can't overcome it, but it's going to be a huge one. If you add in all of these other things, jealousy, the fact she's now working at a hair salon and guys are coming in and getting their hair cut by this hot Slavic woman who are trying to ask her out on a date, you have to ask yourself, is it really worth pursuing? I'm not saying that if that's what you want to go and do, then go and do it, because there will be some woman over there that wants that as well. It's going to take you a long time to find it, and you're going to have a lot of hurdles to overcome. And there are a lot of hurdles to overcome in any relationship. And when you introduce the fact that it's an international relationship, there's even more hurdles, even if it's a realistic age gap. So for me, I personally don't understand it, but I'm not 65 years old. Maybe when I get to that age, at that age, I will realize that I really want a 30-year-old girlfriend. But somehow I probably don't think so. I am looking for a traditional relationship like most other guys doing this. And I like to think that if I'm going to grow old, I want to grow old with someone. I don't want to grow old and this person is still left behind here, taking care of me, feeding me, making sure that I'm okay as an old man. The way that I think about it, and maybe this is something to think about when you are on this journey, is that if I'm going to be so old that I'm going to shit the bed, I want my wife sitting right next to me, shitting the bed as well. Hopefully that helps some guys out there. I know that if you are pursuing that age gap, you're going to dislike this video. So I know if there's some thumbs down, I know that's you guys. But I know people in the industry that work as translators, that work as assistants, that even own agencies. And they tell me the stories about these guys that come over actively pursuing these large age gaps. And I can tell you right now that the success rate for marriage is almost zero. If you like the video, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time.